Cool. Well, if you haven't had a chance to see what the order is for drams, I'm just sharing the PDF file for the blind portion of the tasting that we'll be starting with. Lineup for May starts with Quiet Confidence. Then next up with whiskey number 2 is Thick as Mince. After that, number 3 is Unto Thine Own Self Be True, or Own Cask Be True, pardon me. 4 is CHILLI-BAKED Cashews. And I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation on this. Smokus Fruticosus is number 5. Fancy Meeting You Here is number 6, and we'll be finishing off a night with Tarred and Treacled. So get those poured if you can, but let's dive in for our first round, our lightning round, which we start with trying through the lineup, and then keep some in your glasses as we're going through, because we will go through a second time for the reveal. Whiskey number 1 is called Quiet Confidence. Now, right now it's like you, sorry, go ahead, Harmony.
I was gonna say it is like big and honey and like waxy and
yeah,
got this nice sweet nose to it.
It's like you strained 5 Alive through a dryer sheet right now on the nose for me too. It has this sort of like fruity but clean note.
Mm-hmm.
Still getting that nice bit of earthy nuttiness on there as well.
It does have a nice kind of fresh laundry, maybe something that's been out on the line kind of note to it. So yeah, it's cool.
Slightly grassy. More nutty notes on the palate for me. Some turf, some peat.
Yeah.
Maybe surprising for a first one because of the peat there.
But I mean, it's quite restrained. Yeah, it's very fruity, a little bit waxy, kind of like juicy fruit gum.
Juicy fruit's a good call.
Yeah.
There's like kind of like a sharp kind of like fruit acidity on the palate there, which is kind of nice, like I don't know, like oranges or pineapples or something. It's that high acidity fruit, maybe even some lemons.
Yeah, Jen says she's getting a bit of almond. I agree. I was thinking cashews and almond, and maybe just a touch of like a chili lime powder on it. Not overly dosed, but just enough to be there. Bit of saltiness as well. And Cam, you'll be happy to know, despite us talking you down for the last 5 months to every customer that comes our way, Michael's still happy to have you here. So great.
I challenge my inner Cam every time I work the beer wall now. I try to think good, nice, straight, clean lines. No ziggy zaggy beer lines. That's not how Cam would want it.
I trained you well, Harmony.
Yeah. And I train people that way. I say, when you work beer, you got to channel your Cam into straight lines.
Yeah. Maybe that's another shirt we need to get done is WWCD. What would Cam do?
I'd wear that.
Yeah. Along with the peat, like a touch of like mushroom on the palate for right now for me, grilled mushrooms even.
For the ABV, it's quite spicy. For that,
yeah, it does have some spice to it. I think I might wait till second time around to try that with water.
Ooh, tread lightly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I'm not going to do it. Yeah, first Philix bourbon hogshead. So I guess not too surprising that it's got a bit of spice. I mean, there's some things we could probably infer. If people have got the blind outturn, I mean, obviously you can see it's a black label bottling. So it's probably not a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, first fill cask, more than 10, 15 years, you're going to get a fair bit of oak and a fair bit of spice. And to be honest, I think this has matured nicely for first fill without getting too bitter or too drying and astringent.
No, I think that saltiness and again that spice note coming through keeps the astringents at bay, and that good amount of acidity that the whiskey seems to have as well, as Harmony alluded to. Works really nicely for me. I'm excited to see how that stands up with the rest of the lineup as we go through.
Me too,
But
because that's a tough whiskey to follow.
yeah, it is. It was one where as soon as I saw it and I thought I knew what it was going to be, I thought it might have to go early just because of it's big, but it's subtle at the same time. It's not overwhelming in any way.
Well, and
But let's see if yeah,
there might be a reason for that that's not what you think, which we can touch on later.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see if I'm wrong in putting that one in the first spot. And let's try whiskey number 2, which is Thick as Mince. This is also from a first fill ex-bourbon barrel, 221 bottles from the Outturn, jumping up in ABV to 59.6, and also jumping from one of the more expensive filigree bottles to the regular green bottle that we're more used to seeing.
This is like full on like fuzzy peach candies to me,
Totally.
which we eat a lot of at the shop.
Yeah. It's like you squeezed like a dash of lime with the fuzzy peach candies, even like it has that fresh citrus to it.
Oh, like a green Sour Patch Kid.
Yeah, that's totally what I meant. I forgot to stick to candied
It's still sour.
references. Yeah.
What about those like dipsticks? You know,
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
the especially on the palate, like I've got those like chalky candy dipsticks.
Oh yeah, chalky's a good note for that.
And I
Yeah, it
think
does have a bit of chalkiness.
part of the reason I jumped to the palate was, I mean, the nose on this is good, but after the last one, again, tough act to follow. I'm finding it's a bit shy, but on the palate, I think where you've put it, Evan, makes sense because the alcohol is big. It's very toasty. You know, a lot of like artificial fruit tones coming from it. I am going to have a look at the panel tasting note because I'd love to know where their Thick as Mince comes from, because for me, I was thinking, oh, maybe it'll be like mince meat, which
Yeah, that's what I thought.
my mom makes a good mince meat, but this is not like mince meat.
No, it almost has like a tea-like note where it's relatively steeped, well, steeped in candy for sure, but maybe steeped tea as well.
I'm getting a little toasted flavor on it, something toasted on the palate.
That's a good call. Toasted raisin bread.
I can see that. It's a little bit like Irish soda bread, if you've ever had that, which is like a form of raisin bread, but like thicker and denser.
Nice bit of spice right up front on it. That kind of keeps your mouth, or at least my palate, tingling. Really nice fruit notes in there as well.
I'm gonna try adding some water to this just because it is a little on the punchy side.
Yeah, good call. It was maybe a little bit more one note on the fruits and candy notes on the nose.
It does kind of cut through a bit of that sharp edge. Seems to make it a bit more doughy, but still like very raisiny. It did sort of hide some of those sort of brighter artificial fruit notes that were there.
There is a heat that comes out more on the finish than on the mid palate or in the middle of tasting it for me with the water.
It's very spicy now too towards the finish. Spice dominant.
I don't think I prefer it either way. I think it works both ways. I don't have a preference towards one or the other.
I agree.
It's with the water, it goes more into like jujube territory. More wine gums and soft candies for me too. Okay, on to number 3, unto thine own cask be true. Again, from a first fill ex-bourbon barrel, 215 bottles from the Outturn, 25th of March for the date, and 62.7% this time around.
What's funny is right off the bat, you don't even notice the alcohol in the nose, and yet this is punched up above the last two.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like fluffy and pillowy.
Yeah, I was just thinking like
Marshmallows, coconut.
Mhm.
it has that laundry note again for me too. This is the load where you remembered to put the little bit of fabric softener in instead of forgetting like I usually do.
I intentionally don't put the fabric softener or the dryer sheets in because I don't like the scent. So
Yeah.
it's a never-ending fight between Jen and I. Whoever's doing the laundry gets to dictate whether or not dryer sheets and things are put in. So
Nice.
I don't do it.
Does she double down because you forget to do, like you don't do any?
Oh, I'm sure. There's
Yeah.
a conspiracy there. Thankfully, she never touches my bike stuff, so that doesn't have to happen.
It maintains its athletic reek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's part of its charm.
So Jen and Chris are working on their comedy duo routine there, it looks like. It's Jen sets them up and Chris knocks them down.
She's his straight man, as it were.
Yeah.
Quite toasty. Like loads of coconut, vanilla, toasted oak, but
Candied ginger.
yeah,
Yeah.
not a lot of
Pineapple,
fruit.
too. Reminds me of this pineapple square my mother used to make on the
right on.
nose.
I've added a few drops of water and it does go into like ginger ale territory, like where the ginger ale's in quotes, like Canada Dry ginger ale, where it's the essence of ginger without having ginger.
I kind of both like it better with water and not at all with water.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
can see
don't
that.
know how else to put it, but I mean I don't know, it's just kind of boring.
I think the nose works with water. The palate just it almost stops halfway with water. Just gets completely cut off for me.
There's like a bit of excuse me, there's like a bit of cherry that I with water that I didn't get the first time. Like red berry note. But yeah, it's not super exciting at this moment for me.
Yeah. With water, it's almost like if you've ever had some not very well mixed pancakes or cookies where they get it like a chunk of baking soda in there.
Is that like when your kids are involved in the process?
Potentially,
so you have to be gentle, and you
That's-
can't take over the
that's-
mixing. And
yeah, and my wife would never do that to a cookie or pancakes. I want to get that on the record. This was only when the kids were involved.
yeah, there may have been some muffins made here with too much baking soda because there was no baking powder, and I can totally get where you're going with there. It almost becomes
Yeah.
like salty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, on to number 4. Number 4 is called CHILLI-BAKED CASHEWS. First fill ex-bourbon barrel again. 21st of May for the Outturn, 237 bottles, 60.6% alcohol. Ooh, some big underlying wood notes on there for me.
Well, it's got some coloring. Finding, other than those nutty tones and that bit of spice, I'm finding the nose hard to penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
But 60.6, that might have something to do with it. There's like a cardboardy note to it too.
Yeah,
Is there a chance this is corked?
it's I was thinking the same thing. I'm interested to see what everybody else thinks. I wonder if it is corked. I was not getting this from what I recall when we tasted, when I tasted through the lineup to set the order.
You know,
It's even gone sort of oxidized as well.
like the nose has got a note that, like, often the cork taint you should get as much on the nose as on the palate, but I'm not getting it as much on the nose. But what I am getting is kind of a sharp off note. So
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but I think this one particular bottle might be corked.
yeah, we might have to sacrifice another bottle just to double check that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because even though this distillery has a tendency to get a little farmy and barnyardy, I don't think that's what's going on. Now,
I agree. It's yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, if people disagree, weigh in.
Yeah.
You know, opinions are welcome. Still going to add water to it and see what happens.
It definitely has wet cardboard on the palate for me, which tends to be a sign.
Well, and the Jen's comment about wool dryer balls, I mean, like wet wool or wet dog often come up.
The wool dryer balls was on a previous one where it was actually a compliment.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got some of those dryer balls. Walter loves chasing them and like stealing them from the dryer before Jen can get things out. Probably because of their balls.
So Tyler says the nose was dense, but it kind of goes flat on the palate. Dave Ann says maybe some like cardboard, which could be the case.
With water, I am getting a bit more of that like spices and nutty tones on the nose.
Yeah. But it's just not very, there's not much more happening for me besides spiciness, and it's like peppery cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot of flavor.
It's like one of those paper compost bags full of wet leaves.
Well, it does say autumn.
Yeah, I think if that was a wine, that would be faulted full on. I think a lot of the time it's harder to tell with whiskey, but
you can really pick it up on the finish on your tongue because like it's sort of lingering and not going away.
Yeah.
Well, that's a shame.
Well, luckily it doesn't happen with whiskey as much as it does with wine, even though that's not a huge factor.
Which is why I've been preaching that everybody should move to those high quality caps that the Japanese use. That should be the gold standard for good whiskeys. I know everyone likes the pop of the cork, but like, I mean, how disheartening is it to have a bottle for like 5-10 years, you crack it open and it's gone bad, or it's bad because the cork ruined it. So, and they never like crumble and break off when you're trying to open them. So anyway,
I'm gonna add Sammy just to jump in here. Sammy, I just saw you here. I apologize, but we'll add you to the pin group here at the top if you are interested in chiming in on anything.
Evan, what did you think of this one the first go around when you set the lineup?
It showed better than this, in my opinion. I do question whether so full disclosure, with doing the online tastings and the in-person tastings, we opened 2 bottles. It was likely that just one of those bottles was dipped into for the virtual tastings, if I remember correctly. I'll have to double check, but It could be that only one of those bottles was corked. I'll have to, and I'm not sure which one I tried the first time around, but I did not notice this when I did open it.
Well, no point dwelling on it. We've got 3 more whiskeys to get through, so.
Absolutely. Okay, so on to number 5, which is Smokus Fruticosus.
Oh, well, I mean, the name is nailing it for me. It was like,
Yeah.
hit to the left with smoke and hit to the right with fruit. Like,
Are you gonna do the Richard Patterson where you like smell from one nostril and then the other? Oh, hello. How are you? I think is his shtick.
yeah, but then I would have to throw this across the room to prepare it for more, and there's just not enough.
And we're not wearing nice enough watches or wearing suits with like really big plush ties.
And Chris
I was
is
gonna
smoking my cigar. So
Yeah. As much as I like to make fun of Richard Patterson, I've never actually seen him in person. So I've only heard about his shtick and from other people. But Hunter used to do that. I remember where he'd nose out of one and then the other.
Evan, he puts on an incredible show. If you do one tasting with him, it'll be like one of the best tastings you've ever done. Like there's theatrics to it. There's like props and surprises and all that. But the second time you see it, you're like, I saw that already. It's still kind of good. The third time you see it, you're like,
Yeah.
there's so much E150 in this whiskey. I don't care anymore.
That's it. The nose on this, the Smokus is cool, and it is not this, but it reminds me of Harmony. Did you try that Boutique Millstone yesterday? Where it has that smoke and herbaceousness all together in a similar fashion is what I'm getting on the Smokus right now.
Oh, interesting. I poured like the smallest amounts. I didn't really get to visit it, but
you know what it reminds me of?
Yeah.
When you have the misfortune of walking past a millennial blasting like vape juice in your face when you're walking past them. It's like walking through a cloud of like tropical fruit vape juice accidentally.
Yeah, that's I guess there's not a lot of millennials in Douglasdale. I don't have a whole lot of appreciation for that.
I just got to walk down Kensington Road every once in a while.
Yeah.
Especially in summer.
Yeah.
So this, we didn't talk about it, but the tasting notes on this, if you have the PDF open, it's like they took the Noah's Ark of all casks, where they took 2 of each cask and put it on the Ark, and then they used that all the casks on the Ark to make the Smokus, because it's let's see, we made use of bourbon barrels and hogsheads as well as Spanish and American oak sherry hogsheads, which were seasoned with Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez wines. So it is just a little bit of everything, a hodgepodge, if you will. But I really like what happened with the nose on this.
Yeah, there's a lot going on this whiskey. And I don't know if you mentioned it's or if this is even declared that it's a mix of Islay and Orkney malts.
No, I did not mention that.
Highland Park. Yeah.
So you said Islay and Orkney?
Sorry, I was gonna say on the nose, it kind of reminds me of the dumplings I just had for dinner.
Oh, I could see that. It does have almost like that deep fried note even on the nose for me when you say that.
It looks like Sammy is perilously close to being sucked into a wind tunnel turbine.
Awesome.
Sammy, you were sideways. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Do you need help?
Yeah. That's just so he can.
Using my phone. Yeah, not my laptop.
That's what Richard Patterson needs in his tastings, is something to throw the glass into when he's done with it.
The water, the ice, the glass go right into the fan and get shredded into tiny pieces.
And then out of that, doves just fly everywhere.
That would be, you know what? If Richard Patterson hasn't used doves in one of his tastings, he should totally do that. Other than that, it's probably cruel to the birds in some way that I don't know. I have to imagine doves that you release are kind of, you know, probably not going to last long. They're like a disposable bird. So,
Yeah.
but still, it would be incredible.
And now for my next trick, I mean whiskey, we're going to try. Okay,
Sammy's-
on to,
I was gonna say
go ahead.
Sammy's note in the tasting is barbecued peach.
Nice.
Yeah, I like that.
I would say don't add water to this one.
Oh,
Ooh,
I'm already
see, now I
not
want
there,
to try.
Sam.
Kind of
Yeah.
killed it. Kind of killed it.
oh
Maybe
dear.
on the second time around. Okay, on to number 6.
Oh, this is the one that we spelt the label wrong.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
this
supposed
was
to be fancy
my fault.
meeting you here, MEAT.
Oh,
yeah,
Evan,
yeah, it
how
was
could you
supposed to
miss
be,
that?
I know, I'm hard to believe that I went blind to a dad joke at some point, but I did.
I mean, this possibly the best dad joke in this entire lineup, and you missed it.
Just goes to show it doesn't count if I don't see it.
Everyone look at your PDF, do not look at the bottle.
Yeah. So this was from a first fill barrel with a level number 3 char barrel level, which is an interesting thing to put there. 15th of January, 218 bottles from the Outturn, 54.9% alcohol. So I wonder if they're trying to allude to which distillery it comes from, because there are certain distilleries that do use a number 3 char when they're aging their bourbon.
Mhm,
Wow, that's a wild nose.
mhm. It's like going to a luau. Like you've got, I don't know, someone's roasting a full pig. You've got barbecued pineapple and presumably other tropical fruits and things on the side. You know, pretty saucy barbecue sauce on there too.
It also has this like modeling clay plasticine note to it on the nose, along
When
with
I was
that.
going to even go to a little bit of pork fat.
Yeah, I could see that.
Sue gets smoky mints on the finish. Is that on this one or the last one?
The last one.
The last one? Too slow. I'm too slow.
Jen for this one says it smells fatty. It does.
Yeah, I mean, this has got like pulled pork, you know, roasted pork, pork belly, like all over it for me.
Chris, grilled dove doused in teriyaki sounds like something that you get at some like
Ooh.
highfalutin like New York restaurant that
What's-
specializes in street fare.
Well, they catch Richard Patterson's doves after his show
Yeah,
and then
Yeah.
serve them. And it's very fancy.
Yeah.
Michelin, 3
So-
Michelin stars.
it's a New York City restaurant where they get everything within 10 kilometers. So they're stuck with getting doves and pigeons. That's it.
The palate on this is very complex. Lots of layers, lots of fruit, some nice smoke tones, and like this oily fattiness to it that I absolutely love. Like, this is a really cool malt.
Yeah, that along with that plasticine note, but on the palate, it does go into that tarry note that they're talking about as well. With the name. It just has this sort of like inky blackness, Sharpie, or even epoxy note to it.
It's
And I'm not
definitely
saying
got
that
a
as a
Sharpie
bad
note.
thing. Yeah,
the Sharpie's there for sure.
Mhm.
yeah. A little bit of shoe polish.
Mhm.
That's wild. It actually reminds me of West Cork whiskey that we had that was, I think was the Bog Oak fired cask or whatever, where it had this weirdness to it all over the place. And there was a West Cork a few months back in the SMWS that had a bit of that sort of astringence to it as well.
Though we had to stop carrying those West Cork whiskeys because for the most part, they were no bueno.
Yeah.
This is quite nice. I agree.
Yeah.
It's like an unusual peat. It's not an Isla peat. I don't know, maybe it's kind of a muddy highland peat. If it's more like an Orcadian, like it's such a soft, subtle peat, and not a woody astringent peat.
No, but it's like it's got these vinyl notes along with it. It's definitely a wild one. I really like how quirky it is, but it's one of those whiskeys that's weird, but it's appealingly weird because it's still in balance.
Well, it's very Loch Lomond-esque in some ways.
That's what I was gonna say, Andrew.
Cam,
Missing the Milkbone dog biscuits though.
we're 3,000 miles apart, but you know that synergy, it's still there.
That's right, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what the lineup is, so I didn't.
Oh.
I think this one's going to surprise a lot of people, and it's not a without spoiling too much. This is not a distillery I'm familiar with. Like I've seen the name, I've seen bottlings of it, but I have not tried enough of it to really have an idea of what its DNA is.
Is it one of the first ones the society's brought here?
I think it is the first. Yeah.
Maybe. Not to interject, but I'm already on to the next one, which is like other layers of weird. It's like candied
Nice
bacon on the nose.
This is Sharpie. Like,
Yeah.
immediately.
So number 6 is called, or number 7, pardon me, is called Tarred and Treacled. Started its life in a first fill ex-bourbon hogshead, finished its life in a first fill PX hogshead. 24th of September, 287 bottles, 56.2%.
So Dave, the ketchup chips comment is spot on, as long as
man.
it's like the fancy kettle chips that or ketchup chips that they sell at Peasant. I
Yeah.
don't remember what brand they are, but they're expensive and they're delicious.
I hate this whiskey now that you put ketchup chips in my mind.
That's a great note.
And it takes
is.
away the sense of shame from regular ketchup chips.
I hate ketchup chips.
Oh, but
It's
Oh, it's-
have you had those like premium ketchup chips?
yeah,
Oh, then you're crazy.
yeah. Well,
along
I
with
was,
ketchup chips.
they're so bad.
There's like a Thousand Island dressing note.
Oh. Yeah, it's like a Big Mac with the secret
Yeah,
sauce.
I was thinking Big Mac all over the place here.
But still,
It even
like,
goes into all dressed chip territory where you get a little bit of the salt and vinegar note in there as well.
thick, chunky candied bacon.
Mhm.
I don't know, for me, like the nose seems higher in alcohol than it says. Like it just gets me.
Yeah, there's after that nose, there is a surprising mellowness to the palate. Like it's not a light whiskey. It's just it's very comfortable with itself, I would say. Like it's the palate doesn't come off as like overly aggressive or anything for me.
I could, like, there's 3 whiskeys in this lineup that really stood out to me, and like this is the third of them, and it's like the mic drop. Like, I want to pour this. I'm done. I know we're only halfway through the week, but I'll leave
Yeah.
you guys to finish, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna take that double pour and wander off somewhere.
I see it's a first fill PX, and when the peated whiskeys and marry nice with the sherry, they're fantastic.
Mhm.
And this one is.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, like you kind of hit on something where for me, especially, I find right now, peat and sherry is such a hit or miss. And it's usually like a really nicely hit like this or a lot of misses.
Yeah,
There's a lot out there where like the barbecue notes are cool, but it's just not something that I enjoy beyond tasting it. I have trouble finding a way to open those bottles when I buy them because they're just over the top. Whereas this one, I like the big nose and the mellow palate that it has.
Yeah, Evan, I agree with you. It's a style that is often not done well. And like simply putting sherry and peat together doesn't work, but in a way, it's kind of reminiscent of that Elements of Isla bottling we had.
Totally.
One, the
Yeah.
peat
Yeah.
and sherry, which let's just go back and reflect on the fact that that was a cask strength 9-year-old, predominantly Lafroig. Granted, it was a 500 ml bottle, but it was $75, I think.
Mhm.
Like, it was just stupid. Like, it was a stupidly good deal.
Yeah, the one thing that had more of that this doesn't have is cola notes, where it leaned into the sweet a bit more.
No, but-
This has a bit of the sweet, but
This has got more elegance to it, and
totally.
maybe that's because it's a finish and it's not a full term maturation. So you've got the addition of those like sweet sherry tones, but underneath it, you've got that nice kind of comforting blanket of ex-bourbon, vanilla, you know, honey, toasted oak. This is better than I thought it would be. Like, a lot of the whiskeys we've had from this distillery, which I'm going to try really hard not to name, in the last little while, they've been good, but they've not been like wow. And this is the most wow of them we've had in a while.
Yeah, again, to kind of like walk the line with naming names, it is one of those whiskeys where we talk about it all the time as being like it's really hard to fuck up a whiskey from this distillery.
If you haven't picked up what Evan's laying down,
Yeah.
don't worry, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, let's go back to the beginning.
okay, let's do it. Harmony, is that because it's Tony's bottle? Is that one of the few whiskeys that Tony actually has staked ownership of in some form or another?
Yeah, it is. It is his bottle. I'm not allowed to even look at it, he said. We bought two. He complained about all the peated whiskeys that I had. He hated them all. And then he opened that and was like, this is mine. And he took them both and like hid one. And then he drank the first one and was like, well, we're not opening the second one and you're not allowed to touch it. We had a housewarming and a friend brought a bottle. And he said, the only reason I brought it is because it was the smallest bottle I had. So here you go. And Tony like jumped with joy and went and hid it. And then immediately opened the other one and was like, yes, now I can drink it again. And
Nice.
he finished it. And since then, I've been bringing him samples of like peated sherried whiskeys. And he, in his words, they're all garbage. And they're not that whiskey. So I said, well, if you want it, just open it and drink it. And he's like, nope, not yet. So.
Well, maybe he'd like the last one.
Yeah,
Maybe he'd like the last one.
Yeah, I did pour some back in the bottle for him to try later. We'll see what he thinks.
I still have my bottle. I haven't opened yet either.
Yeah.
And now that we're
On
talking
the-
about it, I kind of want to open it.
well, Elements is adding like a regularly sherried bottling now to their lineup, if I recall as well.
All because of Kensington.
Yeah.
No. They released a bunch of those peat and sherry casks. But that whiskey became kind of funny because a bunch of them started showing up on auction sites before we'd even sold out of it. And they were going for like a couple £100, which was crazy. Because people crave, they want to have peat and sherry done well, which is not always easy. So anyway, to him, you're supposed to bring us back on track and keep things flowing. Here I am trying to get things back on track.
I'm just a guest now, Andrew.
Yeah, give him a break. He's
You're just-
retired.
Yeah. That's totally fair, Cam. I just saw an opportunity for a little dig and I took it.
No worries.
Back to number one.
If the last whiskey was the one I wanted to just be like, I'm out of this tasting, I'm done, I've got a good pour, I'm leaving. I think the first one would be the same, except I would go out on the patio in 25 degrees or whatever it is out back right now, probably 40 on my deck, and just sit there and sip it until the sun goes down.
It's gorgeous. And when we first opened it, or when I first tasted it, it had this cheesy note that I thought was really cool. But I'm not getting as much of it tonight, at least. I don't know if it's changed or in the bottle, or if just my palate's different. But regardless, you guys will understand why I was excited about this one when I reveal it.
Yeah.
Well, we might as well just jump into it. So Quiet Confidence, obviously going to be expensive. This is the oldest bottle of the night. It is 25 years old. It's distilled on the 22nd of November, 1995. And it's, I don't know if anybody would guess this one. This is Lecheg.
No, oh yeah. I was going to see if anyone could guess it, because
Yeah.
there's no chance that anyone was going to say this is Lecheg based on the profile of it.
Yeah. So I might have, but it would have been a stretch. And that's only because I swear the whiskey agency has bottled a sister cask to this that we have.
Right. But there's a story behind those that I was alluding to before, which is that my understanding is that they were still labeling casks of Tobermory 25 years ago as Lecheg, because they weren't selling it as single malt, and Lecheg was the original name of the distillery. So it could have been that they were labeling casks that were being sold off or traded off for blending as Lecheg, because Lecheg wasn't a brand. It wasn't something they were promoting until I think the mid 2000s. So my understanding of the whole story on this, and the reason this is probably labeled as Lecheg, is because that's what's written on the barrel. So that's legally what the Scotch Malt Whisky Society had to refer to this as opposed to calling it Tobermory. And anyway, and now you know little thing across the screen.
Yeah, the more you know. So cask number is 42.73. I might as well bring up the whole bottle here.
Hey, has Kurt tried this one? I'd be curious to know if Kurt likes it, because we know.
No, I don't think I've inflicted this on him yet, and I should have.
Should, and don't tell him what it is.
Tried this, but I've tried it and I like it.
Yeah,
and I don't like Lecheg.
Yeah.
So whether it was distilled at Tobermory, to me the palate has definite peat. The nose it's if it's there, it's pretty subtle. But it's got this, especially on second go round, like the palate is like mangoes and pineapple and just gorgeous tropical fruit with some creamy notes and some saltiness, and that earth and turf coming in too. It's fantastic stuff.
I liked it better the second go around.
Same. And it's surprisingly, after going from the mellow peat of number 7, this one still drinks incredibly nicely.
Andrew, Tony says hi.
Hi, Tony. In all honesty, I actually do hope the Oilers go all the way and win the cup. And apologies to anybody in Toronto, but Leafs fans are literally the worst. So sorry if you're a Leafs fan. It's just, it's a thing. And if you're not familiar with it, read up on it. Like other hockey teams, nobody likes Leafs fans.
Yeah, their support groups for getting over it.
I understand they're great people.
Yeah.
But the Calgary-Edmonton rivalry is quite intense. For personal reasons, I don't really want the Oilers to win because my in-laws will not stop talking about it if they do. But I think they are Canada's best hope. So, I hope they win just for that, because it's been 30 years since Canada's won a cup. And yeah. And McDavid's a good dude, so I hope McDavid gets a cup. So there you go. I said it, but this is my team for life. So
I didn't know hockey was still on. I thought once baseball season started, hockey was over.
Wow. You've really adopted that Ottawa Senators love, eh?
Cam, I don't know if we talked about this, but I had a bad experience in baseball as a child. I back catched for Chris Rietsma, who made the majors, and I had no experience, and he destroyed my shoulder at a young age, and I've hated baseball ever since, unless I go in person, which is different, because then I drink beer and it's like I'm sitting outside on a patio with 50,000 people drinking beer and eating hot dogs. So that to me is baseball. Other than that, I don't really care. Go Flames.
Okay, so
Next
price
year.
again on the 42.73 Quiet Confidence is $5.70. The whiskey agency, I think bottling is in and around that price as well, but both are fantastic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Back to Thick as Mince.
This is so pretty on the nose, like.
And I should probably share the link as we're going along too. I'll go back and do that for the Lecheg in a sec here.
Hey, Evan, are they all live?
I'm putting them live as we're going through, but if you want to
Okay.
jump in, go for it.
No, I just wanted to make sure. If you're on it, I'm not getting interfered.
Sounds good.
Great.
Yeah, really nice sort of vanilla and even a bit of waxiness coming through on the nose now. On Thick as Mince. Just putting, that is the link that I've just put up for the first one, the Lecheg. So Thick as Mince, we're not on the islands anymore. I believe this is Speyside. Yep. The nose is good. The palate's super nice and lush on this.
Mhm.
Does go a bit for perfume. Chris's nose got more florally, but still really nice fruit notes in there as well. Really nice and juicy. This is 8 years old, so definitely a young one versus the last one. And this is Scotch Malt Whiskey Society 48.145.
Does that make it a Balmenic?
I believe it does. I was trying to remember.
I think it's a Balmenic, yeah.
Yeah. So Balmenic Distillery, also the home of Cowran Gin. What the other famous Scottish gin, other than the Botanist, probably the one that sells just as much as the Botanist too, I'm guessing. But Balmenic is sort of one of those sleeper distilleries. Most of it goes into blends, but we do get some pretty good whiskey from them in independent bottling form.
Well, but almost all of it is society. I mean, we almost like
Totally.
think about it. When's the last time you saw a Cadenhead, Signatory, you name it, Balmenic? Like it's frankly
No,
never.
I was trying to, I think maybe we've seen an old malt cask Balmenic, but beyond that, not much. You're right.
No, I don't think there's much out there. They do release a whiskey called Deerstalker that's
Mhm.
Balmenic and it doesn't come to Canada.
No.
Maybe because of our gun laws, I'm not sure. That might have something to do with it. But yeah, we don't see it very often.
Way to own the libs there, Andrew.
Hmm?
Way to own the libs there with that comment.
I'm already back onto To Thine Own Cask Be True because
Sounds good.
ADD, why not? We'll call it that.
I get lots of cereal on this one. I did the first time through too.
Oh. Yeah, I could see that. Like, I am known late at night as my ADD meds are wearing off to crave a little sugar, and occasionally I'll dip my hand into the Honey Nut Cheerios box,
Yeah.
handful of dry Honey Nut Cheerios. So I can see that.
Yeah, there's a link to Thick as Mince. Got to go back to Unto Thine Own Cask as well. Yeah, big time cotton candy again on the nose. As I think Andrew mentioned the first time around. 1-0 Oilers, says Michael.
Well,
Good tasting, no?
I mean, I am happy for them. I'm probably not going to watch a full
Oilers
game
just scored.
because I don't think I can do that. But
Yeah.
I will say this: I am rooting for them to win. I'd like to see.
Yeah.
And I guess in a way, I hope they do win, because if they don't, their fans will burn stuff down, as is their tradition. Because they are an unruly lot up there in Edmonton. They like to burn things when they don't win. So
I thought it was only Montreal and Vancouver that did that.
no, Edmonton is part of that trilogy of Bernie people that like to burn things when things don't go their way. So,
You still find this one boring, Andrew? Getting back to the whiskey.
oh, Cam, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Evan had to do it for the last one. No, I'm actually finding I like this a lot more now. It's grown on me. I think I might like it even more than Thick as Mince. As it's had a little bit of time to breathe and open up. I think
It's gotten like a lot more fruity and
hold
cotton candy
on.
driven.
Did I just hear Andrew say after it's had time to open up?
yeah, it breathes, Cam, oxidation, not because of water, because of oxidation.
Yeah. Water drowns things, Cam. Air
Drowns
makes it breathe. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, is this the one that I said juicy fruit gum on before? I kind of think it is. So yeah, it's still got that. It's big, it's lush, it's fruity. It's quite nice.
Doug says Vegas ties the game, not to get off track, but
But
No
taking
one-
us completely off track at the
that's
same
right.
time.
Yeah.
No one wants Vegas to win a cup. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
even a real city. It's just, it's
It's
the modern Sodom and Gomorrah.
true.
It's not a real
Yeah.
place. I mean, I have
I
to
don't
say,
think that's-
if Edmonton
I don't think
can't
that's
win, I
true
want
till next
Seattle
year.
to win, just because it's almost.
It doesn't, Vegas doesn't become Sodom and Gomorrah until next year when they get their F1 track. and then it's official.
already there. If you've ever walked the strip and you get handed little porno cards, it's already there. It's not cool.
Hey, but they're trying to be
Andrew,
righteous.
or
There's
Evan.
5 Mormon
Yeah.
temples there.
5
Evan,
Mormon temples. Wow.
How about we do a reveal on this one?
Oh, thanks, Cam.
Oh, thank you, Cam.
Yeah. What tasting are we on?
Hey Cam, what are you doing next month?
Unto thine own cask.
We might still be here next month.
Number 3, what was that one?
Okay, so this is cast number 73.143. And boy, I'd have to look it up. I think that's Altmore, if I remember correctly.
Sorry, what is it, Evan?
Altmore?
Yeah, it's
70.
Altmore. Yeah, it's Altmore.
73.
And it's well, Altmore doesn't really have a style. But I think we associate a lot of it with sherry because we used to see a lot of sherried society Altmore casks back in the day.
Yeah.
Sadly, we don't see that many of them anymore. And it's kind of a boring distillery.
Yeah, the Foggy Moss release that they did, that wasn't even mostly sherry. That was
Yeah.
Mm,
like tired
Foggy
sherry
Moss.
and bourbon.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's I think it's always been kind of a distillery in search of distinct character when it comes to sort of setting itself apart, unfortunately. But I do really like this one for something that's just vibrant and youthful. It is 11 years old.
It's better the second time around as well.
Yeah.
It is. It's like the Lecheg where it
Yeah.
needed a bit of time in the glass to really come into fruition.
To open up.
However, unlike the Lecheg, there's still some in my glass. The Lecheg's all gone.
The first time I ever had an Altmore was actually at one of your Kensington Wine Market events. And one of the reps had one of those, I don't know if you remember that copper whiskey vaporizer cart.
Oh, it was the Bacardi guys. Yeah, the trolley.
That was the first whiskey I ever vaped.
That is the one form of acceptable vaping, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Yeah.
Is
Yes, I agree.
vaporizing whiskey for dramatic effect. All right, chili
Yeah.
baked.
Wait, hang on. How much was this one, Evan?
163. Thank you, Cam.
163.
Thank
So yeah, back to the one that we think is likely corked. I'm not going to taste it again. I just nosed it and wasn't
Oh,
super
I'm still gonna
impressed.
drink it.
Unfortunately, I'm really hoping it's corked at this point.
I'm
still
Just
gonna
'cause
drink it.
I think it should show better than this.
It's a little better on the palate now, but it's still kind of like felty, if you
Yeah.
get what I mean, like it's.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's unfortunate if it is corked. I'll have to try and figure that out tomorrow, but this is a Tullibardine at any rate. This
Oh.
is SMWS 28.86. It is 9 years old. And I believe there were some sister casks to this one.
No, I'm not a fan of Tullibardine, so maybe it's just,
Mhm.
that's just what it is. Maybe it's not cork.
No,
No, the
No.
Tullibardine
Feeling like a
tends to have more
horrible
maltiness than this by far.
fuzzy tongue feeling. That's just not
Yeah.
normal.
no, and.
Yeah, I
and
think
Cam,
it's corked and oxidized.
if we were talking about this earlier today at the shop, if you ever had the chance to try like Tullibardine from the late 80s, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
The 70s and the mid 60s even better. But yeah, this doesn't really come across as like Tullibardine-esque. And I think it's got to be a touch of cork paint that sort of unfortunately soured the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, Tullibardine tends to have like a fairly rich and malty and lush style to it, even in ex-bourbon. This is missing all of that, in my opinion. That wet cardboard note, at least for me, is coming out now. Maybe some people are lucky out there and don't get that, or maybe got poured from another bottle. But I think most of the samples we would have poured did come from the one bottle.
Well,
How
So if you do live in Calgary
Evan?
and want to try it from us after tomorrow, after the other tastings, we likely have to sacrifice and open another bottle of this anyways. So you can try it and just see what you think afterwards.
How old?
9 years old on this guy, and it is 155. Sister casks include Scrambled Heather from September of 2021 and Eminently Effervescent, which was from December of 2021.
This
Okay,
distillery is
onto-
really a hit and miss one for me.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and it's one of those distilleries where I think the Murray releases are pretty good, but unfortunately the regular bottlings beyond the Murrays have been sort of like haven't changed in the last 6 or 7 years, and are bottled
they're
at
low
40 or
alcohol, they're
43%.
boring.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not.
They
They're
just don't
not
show well.
bad.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just not exciting in any way.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, back to Smokus, Fruticosus. So there isn't much to reveal about this one beyond what is on the tasting note, I believe. If you're trying to fill in the blanks, let's see. I don't think I do have anything else on this. Kelly didn't either. So 10 years old, blended malt, Isla and Orkney, and all those different casks that I went into. How does it hold up versus the first time around?
Yeah, it's still showing well. It's still fruity, still smoky. Yeah, I dig it.
Bounce back from the water I added.
Same. Yeah, I wonder what Isla distillery that is. I kind of think Kalila just based on the palate, but could be wrong. So Smokus Fruticosus, if you like this one, the price is really good. It's $141. It is part of the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society's Heresy range, which is probably the best name for a range round of whiskeys. Called the Heresy range just because they put it in a clear bottle, and it is kind of goes against what the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society was. Isla Park, Michael says that's a good one. But this kind of goes against what the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society was founded on, which is a single cask strength. It's not a single cask and it's not a cask strength, but It is a really good blended malt, in my opinion. I quite like it.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the spelling error that I made with fancy meeting you here.
Still nosing really well in the nose.
Yeah.
I guess that's a bit
Anybody want to guess the
redundant.
distillery before I give anything away on this one?
Yes, guess the distillery. If you know because of some other reason, like maybe you're out of town and you get the email, don't
Ooh.
guess. That's not fair play. But it's
Dammy
not
put out a really cool thought though, that I don't know if anybody's had a chance to try any of the lag bottlings yet of their young whiskey, but it does have some parts in there that are very reminiscent of lag, where it has that heavy phenolic note, that youthful peat, where you get some of those chemical notes, but it still is so well put together, I think, for what it is as well.
Yeah, there's no guesses here. So what if we told you this is not from Scotland? Yes. Yes. Does anyone have the Jeopardy thing? We could like play it down.
We'd be
How much
hit
you
by
wagering?
copyright when I put this up on YouTube, man.
Phil and Suzanne said Cavalan, which is interesting. It's not the Douglas.
Wow.
There's only one Canadian whiskey that's been bottled so far, and that's Shelter Point. So it's not the Douglas.
Phil and Suzanne are geographically very close.
Very close. Yeah.
So it's a Japanese whiskey?
Nope.
No.
What's the other Taiwanese whiskey?
It's got a little
Give you
bit
a hint,
of
it's owned by the government. True story.
that it has a hint of Thrills gum to it now on the palate.
It's quite medicinal. It's not Danish, although I like the thought of that in a way, because this does taste like something that would appeal to Scandinavians. So, but it's not Danish. It is Taiwanese.
Yep.
Most definitely not Irish. Evan, I
Although
think
there
we-
are some Cooley whiskeys that have a bit of this nose when they get peated as well.
but I don't think they get like that as medicinal and as burnt
No.
plasticky as this does.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, that's more West Cork's thing. But this is a distillery that I've only tried a couple from. I think a lot of us, if we've had any, have only tried a couple from as well. The distillery is 138.10, and I am pretty certain that this is the first one to ever come to Canada from the society, even though it's the 10th bottling. Distillery number 138 is a distillery called Nantou. And I believe this is the pronunciation, or the spelling is Nantou.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's the other Taiwanese distillery. And from my understanding of it is they actually predate Cavalan, but they weren't making single malt until after Cavalan demonstrated there was a market for it. And then they
Cool.
started making single malt. Partly because Taiwan is an interesting country, and this is the interpretation I've had from Taiwanese friends. They saw the success that Cavalan was having internationally, and they thought the government should get a piece of that action too. And that's why they got back into making single malts. And we have seen some of these releases come into the market. They've just not really caught on like the bog standard releases that they bring in, but we've had some exceptions like this that are just gorgeous, that show when it's well made.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Andrew there.
How
Yep.
good it can be.
So price on the Nantou is $223.99. It was distilled on the 15th of January 2016. It is 6 years old. But yeah, that is
It's really
it's
good.
almost like a safe roller coaster ride, where like you expect things to go off the rails at some point, but it's just exciting and fun, and you still get to the end without any injuries. I really like this one. It's really impressively put together.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of the top 3 whiskeys in tonight's lineup for sure. But that's just me. You've given the price and everything. Can we move on to the last one? Because
Yeah, so price, if you didn't hear it, is $224 on the Nantu. But let's go back to Andrew's favorite of the night, which is Tartan Treacle.
I want to be clear here. I'm not sure it's my favorite. It's among my 2 favorites.
Cool.
Because Lecheg is your favorite tonight.
I think Lecheg might be my favorite tonight. But
Oh,
this
man.
is like, it's like smelling. It's like
I'm gonna
nosing
make that my
Cracker
ringtone.
Jacks.
Please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if you caught that. I was just saying it's like nosing Cracker Jacks.
Yeah.
And like peanut brittle. It's awesome.
Oh man, yeah, that is a really good call. Like it's so I grew up in Creston, BC, and pre 9/11, when I moved up and I was in Calgary by the time 9/11 happened. But in the 90s, I lived so close, living out in the boonies and outside of Creston itself, that we would be able to ride our bikes across the border. It was like a 8-kilometer bike ride. And there's a small place, a gas station there across the border called Port Hill. And we used to ride up there and buy boxes of Cracker Jacks because they had baseball cards in them. And it is like cracking open the Cracker Jacks, whereas it's got that heavy caramelization, that almost burnt nose, but the big sugar notes on there as well.
Yeah,
just gorgeous stuff.
it's caramel corn with nuts and other fun little trinkets mixed in. It's beautiful. I have to apologize. I got to bow out.
Yeah, all good.
But I vote Lecheg followed by this one, which you're going to name. I'm not going to ruin it for everybody, but
Absolutely.
have a good night, everyone.
Good night, Andrew.
Take care, Andrew. Okay, so the probably no surprise because of what Jen, Creston is definitely not Calgary West. It's Calgary hasn't stretched that far yet. It's still about a 5.5 hour drive from Douglasdale, where I am in Calgary. So city limits, maybe in a couple of years, maybe by 2040 or so we'll have stretched that far, but not quite yet. But the bottle that we're on is from Isla, and probably not a huge surprise to many people, but this is Kalila. It is 53.422 for the cask number. And 14-year-old from Isla, spent 11 years old on ex-bourbon hogshead before we transferred it to a first fill hogshead, and it comes in at 56.2% alcohol from the 24th of December or September 2007. And it's $205, but man, that is a pretty darn good cask finish. Unlike Andrew, I've been pretty happy with the refill hogshead and ex-bourbon Kalila that we've gotten from the society over the last couple of years. I really like that sort of salty, limey margarita note that most of them have, but it is pleasant to see Kalila done in a little bit of a different way with the cask finish like we did in this one. The sherry does work really, really well. I was super impressed with this one, and that combination of like that caramelized candy note plus the smoke and the peat and the slight barbecue. Just such a balanced Isla whiskey with sherry, which balanced Isla whiskey and sherry don't always go together, but that is a full sentence on this one. So 205 again on that. And this one, I'm going to read off the sister cask to this one because it's almost a novel. There are a lot of them out there. There's a link for the Tartan Treacle for those that are looking for it. But Kelly says 53.422 is a sister cask to a bunch. One of the more recent ones that a lot of people would remember is Hospital Juice. That was 53.269. And that was a bottling that we got BC's allocation as well. because the BC government took offense to the name with it being released during COVID. And I'm glad they took offense. They should have taken offense, and they should take more offense to other bottlings just so that Alberta can get more of it. But beyond that, 53.275 called Cause and Effect was from September of 2020. 53.284, which I totally remember the name of, that's Smoky Salty Minerality from April of 2020. 53.288, which was Vigorous Concentrated Intensity from February of 2020. And 53.320, which was Raiders of the Flossed Ark from December of 2021, and 53.329 which was Intense Seaside Experience, which I believe Rob was in on that tasting with me live at the Kensington Wine Market, and he had some sexual allusions to the name on that one that he brought up, which Kelly was not super impressed with at the time, if I remember correctly. But regardless, some cool names and some cool bottles from Society Outturns past that share some DNA with this Caol Ila. So Cam, since we have you here and on the spot, what were your favorites of the night?
Well, I'm going to agree with Andrew. 1, 6, and 7 were my favorites, all three. Any one of those.
Harmony, how about for you?
I was 1, 3, and 6 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something about the last one I just was completely offended by, which surprised me. I couldn't get over the nose. I couldn't get through it. My palate's been off the last few days. Things that I normally like, I don't. That one just, it gave me an instant headache, actually, upon nosing it. It
Brutal.
was just so chemically, and it just felt like I was constantly sniffing when like a black Sharpie. I couldn't get through it until like my glass was empty. I just emptied it out and mixed it with the corked one just to try to smell the glass. And that's when I was able to kind of break it down and get to kind of those fruity, salty citrus notes. But while the whiskey was in the glass, it was not working for me. But I love the Lecheg, and I knew what it was. I was happy you put it first because I was able to try it when we poured it. And it was take every bit of strength to not go back into that bottle and drink more of it, because I know we have tastings this week. The
Yeah, that's such a good bottle.
Yeah, the Nantu is really good, and unto thine own cask be true. I really did enjoy. Who knows what my senses will be like next week, though.
That's right. Sammy, did you want to chime in with your favorites of the night? I'll see if I can ask you there. Does that work?
He's muted. There he goes.
Number 7, number 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know what, Sammy, I'm going to agree with you on number 5. There's something about this one, and there's the heresy range tends to be pretty divisive. Like there's some people that some like the blended malts, but a lot of people just pass over them and go to the single casks, which I can totally understand as well. But this is one of the batch blends from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society that I've really enjoyed as well. I am going to say number 1, the Quiet Confidence from the Lecheg, and the Smokus is my number 2 for the night. Yeah, really nice lineup. So that does it for our Outturn this evening. Thank you all for joining us. I have to run, unfortunately. Cam, Sammy, Harmony, I'm not sure if any of you want to stick around. If you do, I'll give you hosting duties and you can commiserate with everybody else. But I need to go help put some kids to bed now that they're back from baseball.
Yeah.
I have to walk my dog.
It's getting late here. I'm on the east now.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna retire as well.
Sounds good. Well, I guess we'll call it.
Night.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Hopefully we'll see you in June, if not before that.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a good night.
Yeah.